But I just wanted to review or briefly go over the functions of the skin, okay? So actually first, why don't you talk to your neighbor and come up with all the different functions of the skin. Let's start with protection since we said that. All right, but what is your skin protecting you from? Okay, sun, infection.
Everything that's not supposed to be in your body.
Okay, yeah, I mean just dirt. Right? It's a physical barrier, right? It's separating, any sort of blood supply, anything on the inside from the outside. Yes. All right, what else? There's something else you could add. What's that? From what? Haters. Sometimes people hate us because of our skin, though. Well, okay, so vitamin D. All right, but there's something else it protects us from.
Radiation. Oh, that's not.
Cold.
What's that?
Penetration.
Sure, yeah. The elements, temperature. It is, but it's also protection. There's something else, though. Like maybe you're outside in a tropical depression and something's happening in the air.
Waterproof.
Okay, good. Right, so your skin is somewhat waterproof. You can't stay in water forever. It will mess up your skin. But kind of a side note to this, what happens to your fingers when you're in the bath too long? Y'all wrinkly. Yeah. So and so it was thought that there was some sort of osmotic imbalance regulation going on, and that's why they wrinkled up. But in fact, they've done studies, and your grip is better or stronger when you have those wrinkles in them. So it allows you to grip things when your hands are wet. So they're sweating, and so they're keeping their hands dry.
So there's a balance. You can either be really, really wet and grippy, or really dry.
Yeah, so really, really wet is what's happening when you're bathing. A rock climber it's not enough moisture, I think, to induce that.
To make it more grippy.
Yeah, and it would be, they're still trying to grip on a dry surface, so they're using chalk to keep it dry. Yeah. All right, thermoregulation. How does this occur? Okay, sweat. When you're too hot. What else? Okay, good. Goosebumps. When you're too cold. What else? Okay, shivering is your muscles. So that's not your skin. Okay, so you have a flat skin, and then you have a little raised air pocket, and that just gives you a little bit more insulation. Not much, but a little bit. Yeah, but there's more. There's another one that your skin will do. What's that? Okay, yeah, there is a layer of fat which is actually under your skin, and actually just it being there is some insulation. So yeah, we'll put that down. But there's another one. Running out of room. Hair, somewhat, but we aren't hairy enough really to make much of a difference. Some people are, maybe. Yeah. If I didn't manscape so much, maybe. You know. All right. All right, it has to do with your blood vessels. Vasoconstriction or dilation.
But wouldn't that be the vessels themselves and not the skin?
Yes, but the heat radiates through the skin.
Okay.
Yeah, and the blood vessels go to that layer, right? So at the skin, when you're too hot, do you vasodilate or vasoconstrict? Dilate. Yeah, you want blood to go there, you want the heat to be released. When you're too cold, you'll vasoconstrict, and that's your skin will feel colder. It's not doesn't have as much blood flowing to it. Okay. All right. Vitamin D synthesis. When you are exposed to UV rays, specifically the UVB rays, don't have to know that anyway. A precursor to vitamin D is then released from the skin into the bloodstream. It then goes into your liver and is synthesized a few more steps. And essentially, vitamin D is then released into your bloodstream, which helps you absorb calcium. Okay, interestingly enough, you can also get vitamin D from the foods you eat, but the vitamin D from your skin lasts longer. Okay, so it's important to get sunlight or vitamin D. Where do you get vitamin D from your food? Do you have a question? So generally, milk and dairy products are fortified with vitamin D. Sunny D, maybe, I don't know. You can put it in anything, but. Yeah. All right. What else is on our list?
Sensory.
What's that? Yes, lots of sensory. Oops, black. All right, what kind of sensory receptors are on your skin?
I have a real question.
Okay.
So, how does hair factor into the sensory receptors of your skin? Because isn't that part of one of the functions of hair?
Yeah, so hair is embedded within your skin.
Yeah.
And you have a network of sensory nerve endings which end on your hair.
Skin also has like sensory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's lots all throughout the dermal layer, different types. Okay, and on your hair, right, you can feel when air passes by it because there's sensory nerve receptors on there that move with the hair. Okay, but yeah, it's almost too many to list out, but you've got pressure receptors, different kinds, so like light pressure and deep pressure. Yeah, Jason?
Nociceptors to sense pain.
Okay, lots of those. Where are these concentrated in your skin? Okay, your fingers are one place where it's concentrated. That's why paper cut hurts so bad. You've got lots of nerve endings there. Okay. You can feel heat, right? And cold, so thermoreceptors. Touch, which is probably a function of pressure. Okay. When people list their 5 senses, touch is one of them. Touch is kind of actually a combination of multiple receptors working together. But yeah, those need to be there and they'll allow us to make corrections for our external environment when needed. Yeah, we can also feel when things are wet or slippery, or there's lots of things within there. All right, so those are our general functions of skin. All right, our skin is also known as our cutaneous membrane, and this is the figure you guys have already seen, right, or the model at least in lab. But we'll label this and then talk a little bit more about the functions of each of these parts, okay? All right, so our three main layers, or general layers, are the epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis. Okay, are also called the subcutaneous layer, subcutaneous fat layer. Those are the easy ones, right? You got those. These other ones, lots of little small things in there. All right, so I'm going to see what you guys remember. Why don't you guys see what you can label in the next few minutes, and then we'll go through them together. These all, I'll tell you a little bit more about them, right? So let's start at the bottom here. So we've got a network of blood vessels which goes all the way into the dermis. All right, which is our cutaneous, referring to the skin, vascular, which is referring to the blood vessels, and then plexus, which is just a complicated network of vessels or something else. All right, and in fact, there's so much of these blood vessels going to your skin. One of the functions you could say of skin is blood storage. So there's quite a bit of blood actually within your skin. Okay, and we've got a number of different nerves, all those yellow little scraggly things in there. All right, this one's called the Pacinian corpuscle. Okay, and you see how it's got a big round ball on the end. Okay, and essentially, this is a deep pressure nerve ending. So when something presses on the skin, it will change shape, and that will cause a signal to go down into the nerve, and then eventually signal to the brain that something is touching you. All right, and we have a couple other nerve ones. So here's the hair follicle receptor. Okay, which will help you know when your hair follicles are being moved, which helps you feel wind. But also might help you feel when a bug is crawling in your hair, like a tick or a mosquito or something. Anything that moves the hair. Or sometimes my 2-year-old, well, I guess he's 4 now, but used to like to wake me up by pulling on my beard. Fun things like that. It has a nerve ending associated with your hair, or if you pull out a hair, right? There's nerve, there's pain receptors associated with that as well. Right? And then I think that's all for receptors in there. Okay. All right, so let's do this one up here, which is the pore attached to the eccrine sweat gland. Okay, and these are for thermoregulation. So this is when you get too hot, it's going to secrete sweat, which is mostly water. It's going to evaporate and pull heat off of your skin. We have apocrine sweat glands as well, but they aren't on this figure. Apocrine sweat glands also have chemicals in there which release a smell, which we believe is the human pheromone. But we don't really, in Western civilized society, smell it so much because we shower and bathe. But if you go to other countries where they don't shower and bathe so much, it's very evident kind of what that smells like. The human smell. Okay? We do have this gland here associated with the hair, though, is a sebaceous gland. Okay, and that secretes, yes, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so in the quiz, you had the apocrine gland associated with the hair follicles, and so
Mhm.
I'm just kind of confused with like sebaceous and apocrine glands.
So they aren't on here, but that is true. But they're going to be concentrated on the armpits and groin area. So they aren't featured on here because most of your skin doesn't have them.
Okay, so then what's like the role of the sebaceous gland?
Sebaceous gland secretes sebum. Okay, which puts basically, it's an oil, it's a lipid layer across your skin. And how would that help you? Yeah, so it'd prevent water, moisture from being released from your skin. Okay, it also makes your hair healthy and strong. So when your hair is all greasy, that's the sebum in your hair from the sebaceous glands. And funny enough, we wash our hair and we wash it all out. And then if you put conditioner in your hair, that's sebum. They take, it smells nice. So they actually, usually from sheep, they extract it from sheep and they put it in these conditioners. Or there are probably some synthetic ones as well. And then you just put it right back in your hair. So if you want healthy hair, you could do that, or you could just not wash your hair. It's an option. But sebum also has some antimicrobial properties to it. So there's some antibodies in there associated to prevent infections from bacteria or fungal pathogens. So that's the sebaceous gland, and the apocrine sweat gland we think is mostly just to release this odor, which in the past I guess would make you sexy. I don't know. Our natural cologne or perfume. But we aren't used to smelling it because we bathe too much. Maybe we should bring it back though. Why not? Yeah. All right, let's see, oh wait, we do have this one. So we've got this bottom one here, just sensory nerve fiber. This could be any sort of sensory nerve.
Wouldn't that be a motor neuron, because it's activating the right.
Well, in the book it says sensory nerve, but it could be a motor nerve. You know, it does need some sort of motor nerve in there as well. And then we have adipose tissue above that. Which are fat cells which give a little cushion, okay, and then would provide some sort of nutrient storage as well. And so generally, you have a healthy layer of subcutaneous fat. Okay, if you are starving, that layer will be used for energy, and so you can see that on people's faces. Their bones are generally more apparent when they're starving. They don't have that layer present anymore. All right, and then we have the hair follicle, which is the part of the hair below in the dermis, and the erector pili muscle. And then the hair shaft. And I explained what the erector pili muscle was for, right? For making goosebumps. And then also makes your hair stand on end. And back, you know, if we were hairier, again, less manscaping, the hair would stand on end and also give us a, larger effect, make us look larger, which we can see in other animals like cats and dogs. when they're scared, their hair will stand up on their neck and give them a larger appearance. All right, so that's the integument figure with the structures and a little bit more about their functions. Okay. Any questions? Yes.
So, if our skin isn't really, like if our epidermis part, I should say, is mostly dead, why do we need to add like moisturizer to it? Why does it need to be moisturized?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, it still is, there's still layers within there that prevent moisture from being released, right? Even though it's dead, there's differences within those layers. And we'll go over those in a second. I don't use moisturizer, but there are also the collagen fibers, another thing in the dermis, which I guess would help prevent those from drying out. But yeah, themselves, I guess, yeah, they are dead. Yeah.
What is the sheath in the dermis of the hair? That's the one thing that's not labeled.
Yeah, it's not labeled. So there is a connective tissue layer of sheath around it as well. You would just say sheath, actually. Yeah. But yeah, since we're there, let's talk about the epidermis. So, yeah, the only layer that is alive here is the bottom layer where you have stem cells continually dividing. Right? And that's our basal layer, stratum basale. And that's really ugly handwriting. So this is the mitogenic layer, right? Mitosis is occurring here, regularly pushing cells up closer into or closer to the surface. Yes.
Close to the blood supply.
They're right there on the blood supply. So the papillary layer of the dermis is below it. And that has where all the blood vessels, that cutaneous plexus ends. And that's going to provide nourishment for that basal layer. But beyond that, yeah, there's no blood supply. Embedded within the stratum basale, there are some melanocytes. Which release melanin, which gives you your skin tone. Okay, there are different types of melanin. Some produce the darker color and some produce more of a reddish color. There's also carotene, carotenoids, which give you an orangish yellow hue as well. And those can be stimulated by sunlight as well to produce melanin. So that protects your skin from UV damage. So the more melanin you have, the more protection you receive from those UV rays. Also within there, you have another type of pressure receptor called the Merkel cell, attached to a neuron. And this gives you light pressure, so a gentle touch will stimulate your Merkel cell, whereas a more pointed one would stimulate your Pancinian corpuscle. Okay, and also something that's not labeled here, but you have these star-shaped cells kind of embedded within here sometimes, called dendritic cells or Langerhans cells, and these have immune function. Give them more of a cell body. So these will be, if there is a bacteria that somehow gets in there, it would be able to engulf that and get rid of it, prevent infection. All right, the next layer up is stratum spinosum. Okay, and that's where you'll find the dendritic cells in the stratum spinosum. Okay, and then it's heavily has a lot of these keratinocytes in there. So these are filled with the protein keratin, which gives the hardening of those cells, makes them harder. All right, so the next cell superficial to that is the stratum granulosum. And these have lamellar granules. So this is within the cell, which release a glycolipid which also helps in keeping the skin waterproof. All right, then we have the stratum lucidum. All right, and this is, there's an asterisk next to this one because this is only found in the palms of your hand and the soles of your feet. Okay, it just gives it an extra layer for toughness because you're using the palms of your hands and the soles of your feet much more than the rest of your skin for picking things up or walking or experiencing a lot more wear and tear. Yeah?
Do you develop like a callus on your hand or some other part of your body? Does that deal with the stratum lucidum that's like affected?
That's a good question. I don't know for sure. But yeah, you have thickening there. I don't know if that's just the outer layer or if it's the lucidum layer. Maybe both. But yeah, I'd have to look that up. All right, and then the last layer, most superficial, is the stratum corneum. And at this point, they aren't really releasing anything. They're very dense, very flattened, all packed together, and the outer layer is going to be released. So these are the the dead cells filled with keratin. And this also helps in the protection layer because if something lands on there, it's not supposed to be there, well, it's just going to slough off anyway. And this also helps in tissue repair. By having another layer coming up underneath, you can push anything on the top out and away, including old, dead, damaged tissue. Yeah.
What's the lifespan of one of these cells that separates at the basal layer and then it ends up falling off? How long does that usually take?
That's another good question. I don't know. But, yeah, I'll have to look it up. Epidermis. All right, so I did want to show you then this. Figure in the book that you won't have to worry about, but I do want you to know the 3 layers of the cross section of a hair. So this is a cross section. I think my thing is dead. This is going to be particularly messy. And the inner part is called the medulla, and the outer part is called the cortex. My handwriting just took a few years back, writing with my finger. And the medulla is harder in keratin, so it has more keratin, making it harder. The very, very outer layer is called the cuticle. And the cuticle is like overlapping shingles. So the way that the cells form, like shingles on a roof, they have overlapping scales, essentially, that forms your hair. Let's see if that'll work. So it does something kind of like this. So it kind of looks like reptile scales, but it's at a very, very microscopic level. So if you want to in lab sometime, you can pluck out a hair, look at it under the microscope, and you can see the jagged edges formed by these overlapping scales. And you can also see the differences in light from the cortex and the medulla. Yeah?
So the cuticle, is it for people that have like coarse hair or like smooth hair, does it like change the shape of the cuticle, or is it more of like the firmness of the medulla?
Good question. I don't know. We'll look that one up. But I think thick and thin hair is actually both layers in thickness. But the cuticle will, if your cuticle is frayed, that will cause split ends and rougher texture of your hair. And that happens if you don't have enough oil on your hair. So the sebaceous glands keep the cuticles from intertangling and causing hair damage. Was there another question?
You answered my question.
Okay. Yep. All right, so that's all I want you to know as far as anatomy of the hair. But I do want you to know these 3 stages of hair growth: anagen, catagen, and telogen. Okay? Anagen is the first initial stage of hair growth. So if there's nothing in the follicle, the first part of the hair growth is going to occur there.
Doctor, do you explain the 2 stages in the video lecture?
No.
No?
They are in the book, though. Okay, and it's going to grow at the most accelerated rate during this anagen phase. And then at the catagen phase, it will slow growth. And then eventually it will stop growing. So if you think about most of the hairs on your body, they grow to a certain length and then they stop, right? The hair on your head continually grows, for the most part, but your eyebrows, your arm, leg hair, everywhere else, it just grows to a certain length and then stops. So that's the catagen phase when it stops growing. In telogen, it falls out. Okay, and then it starts over back at anagen. And so the rate at which telogen occurs is going to be hopefully replaced by anagen in the next phase. If you have telogen occurring faster than anagenesis is replacing hairs, that's when you get hair loss, alopecia. Okay? Okay, but this news article just popped up in my news feed yesterday of a hair. Okay, this was published in Nature, where they looked at this receptor, that's an olfactory receptor. So something found in your nose that helps you recognize a specific smell. Specifically, this synthetic perfume called Sandalore. And they found that if you expose hair follicles to it, it will increase the anagenesis phase. So they think that this will help people with alopecia. Like this will help restart hair growth so that if you're bald, you can get more hair. But what was interesting is normally it's a olfactory receptor, but it's also on your hair. So essentially, it'd be like your hair is smelling this chemical and then producing more hair. Okay? It's not like you can actually smell from the hair, but that's kind of how it was referenced. Yeah?
So they're saying the receptor is on the hair. What if you are completely bald, you don't have hair? How can you smell it?
Well, if the receptor is there,
But there's no hair. So does it have to be
So-
on the skin? The receptor?
no, it's in the hair follicle.
Okay.
Sorry. It's at the base where hair would start to grow.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not on the hair itself, it's in the follicle, which would then generate anagenesis. So, and it also only works with the synthetic product. So this is also a naturally occurring perfume, but it doesn't have the same properties as the synthetic perfume that they made from it, which activates the receptor. So, so the macule is a freckle. All right, so that's caused through UV exposure. And not everyone gets these. Generally, if you have fair skin, you'll have freckles. If you have a darker skin tone, you'll just tan, right? All right, a wheal is then known as, okay, hives are an example of a wheal, where it fills with elevated with a little bit of fluid inside, accompanied by itching. And so this can occur due to generally allergic reactions. All right, a papule is a pimple or a zit, if you will. Fluid-filled. A nodule is a large pimple. Okay, and these can be caused, of course, through a condition called acne.
So what do they consider a large pimple?
What's that?
So it's just the same thing, just has more fluid underneath. Okay, but then you move down to a pustule, which is with basically a nodule with pus. And yeah, this is like a whitehead. So where the other ones would be more clear with their fluid, this would be have some sort of maybe slight infection with it, which produces the pus. Okay, a vesicle is a blister. All right, so this can be caused by burns or friction. An erosion is also known as an ulcer, which can be caused by decubitus. Trying to spell it right. Okay, and these can occur. So this often happens with older people who can't move, or actually anybody who can't move. If you're injured, stuck in a hospital bed, if you stay in the same position too long, the skin will experience damage just from that pressure. So that's why you don't stay in the same position when you sleep. You move around so that you're shifting where your skin is feeling pressure. But if you don't move, if you actually were, paralyzed or just stayed in one spot, the pressure on that, wherever you experience pressure, it would cause an ulcer. Basically, that skin would be damaged. And so one of the jobs of nurses is to move people around every couple hours or so that they don't form these ulcers. Yeah.
So wouldn't stomach ulcers be different though? Like, wouldn't that be more from the acidity of the stomach?
Yes. So stomach ulcers are caused by a bacterial infection, but it's the same sort of thing. It creates like a little erosion where it pulls apart.
Like bed sores?
Bed sores, yes, that's the same thing.
So can they form within like one night of sleeping, or is this over time?
I would imagine yes, but I don't know for sure. I don't know how long it takes for them to form. All right, a crust. Okay, I don't know if there's a good way to say it. A flake, we'll say. So where it's crusty, a dry, serous or brown, yellow, red, or green exudation, so where it's kind of falling off. So an example of this is eczema, which is a chronic condition where your autoimmune system is kind of attacking your skin and creates these scales or these crusts.
Is another example?
Psoriasis is more shiny, so that would be the next one. Right, and so another flaky appearance. But yeah, they're generally, let's say, a shiny flake. So psoriasis is another autoimmune condition where these reddish, shiny, it can be in different in severity, but they appear all over the skin in different areas. All right, a fissure is a crack. Okay, an example of when a fissure can occur is in athlete's foot or ringworm. Do we have any wrestlers in here? You have ringworm? Have you ever had it though?
I've had it in Taiwan, never had anymore.
Okay. So my brother was a wrestler. He got ringworm a number of times. That's why they have to wash the mats so many times.
Can you get a fissure like in your anus? Like if you poop too hard?
Yeah, you can. This would be more minor. A fissure in general is, some sort of crevice which it forms. Yeah.
So is this like
We could look up some pictures of athlete's foot, but it's a fungus that infects the skin, and it creates these big old cracks. Yes. Well, it can be other things as well, but I think you just have dry skin in the winter. So it's not, well, we'd have to see it. It could form a fissure, I guess. Yeah. All right, and then a burrow. I don't know if there's a good common name for this, but this is caused by burrowing organisms.
So like a botfly?
Yeah, so stuff. A botfly. All right. It's the botfly again. All right, so our nails, we watched this video already. We could. But first we're going to draw the nail, the structures on the nail, right? So we'll draw them in two different views because otherwise you can't see everything. All right, this person needs a manicure. All right, maybe just a clip, we'll see. But you have on here then the nail bed. And then the nail bed underneath, the nail forming on top. Let's just nail body. We'll draw the nail bed in the other view, okay? And we said, we know this part down here, the little moon, called the lanula, which is a more thickened part, right? So the cells are more thick there. It's white, whereas the nail body is pink because it is not as thick, and there is a lot of blood vessels underneath there, which give it that pink. So there is a bit of dead skin here called the cuticle or the epinicium. Okay, and part of manicure is they push that down to expose your full nail. So I've heard. I've never had a manicure. Another tactic that are sometimes used at these manicure pedicure places is getting little shrimp, cleaner shrimp or fish to eat the little dead parts. Has anyone had that done? Yeah. So you put your hand in this water and the fish come up and they eat all the dead skin and little parts.
It's like the Egyptian or the Greek.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. All right. So further underneath, however, this flap of skin here then is called the proximal nail fold. Okay, and then further down, I'm going to do a dotted line. Is the nail root. Okay, and the nail root is where the mitosis is taking place, which receives the blood supply and produces a constant layer of cells to replace the part that falls off at the free edge. Okay, so what we call our fingernail, the outer part, if you have long fingernails, is the free edge, which goes over the skin. Okay, and then there is the fold of skin over the sides, the lateral fold. Okay, and at this point, if you get some sort of disattachment or maybe some, an injury on the side of your thumb or finger or toe or some sort of constant pressure, it can cause the nail to grow into the skin, and that's where you get ingrown toenails or ingrown fingernails. And they can get ugly. And one of the procedure for that is to pull the skin back, cut the nail along the side, and allow then that growth to continue. Yeah?
If you damage the nail root, will it grow back the same?
So yeah, if you one of the procedures, if you have constant or consistent ingrown toenails or fingernails, is to completely remove the toenail with the root so that it doesn't go back. So yeah, so if you damage or pull out the root, then it won't grow back. You can remove the toenail or fingernail without the root and it'll grow back. But if you damage it enough, it will prevent continual growth. Yeah. Okay, long distance runners will often lose their fingernails and toenails. Well, not fingernails, toenails. If they run too much, basically that constant pressure on their toenail will cause it to fall off. Sometimes they won't regrow if there's enough damage to the root. All right, but if you look at it from the side, Okay, so there's my finger. You have underneath the nail matrix or germinal matrix. Okay, and this is the blood supply for that nail root. And this is what makes your fingernails pink. And then there's also another little piece of skin attaching to the free edge, or the underside of the free edge, called the hyponychium.
So the nail matrix is where the blood is?
Yes.
Is that O N or
Which one?
Hypo.
Hyponychium.
Oh,
All right, and they grow just like the epidermis grows. In fact, they have some of the same terminology. At the bottom, you would call it the stratum basale. At the free edge, you would call it the stratum corneum. They don't have the same functions as the other one. It's more keratinized, which makes it harder, but those layers would stay the same. All right.
Which layers is it?
Stratum basale at the bottom, stratum corneum at the end
Of the hyponychium or of the nail?
of the nail.
Even though the top part, so the top part's not dead then? Like the nail body's not dead?
So the nail body is dead, essentially, yeah, being pushed away, but it's attached to the germinal matrix underneath with these grooves, and there's a lot of sensory perception from there. So that's what it's protecting. It's protecting the end of your nails. Also allows you to grab things. If you didn't have fingernails, you would notice, pretty quickly all the little things that you use your fingernails for. Wouldn't be able to wash dishes, pick your teeth, scratch, right? Claw away offenders, things like that, Okay. All right, so we've kind of gone over these glands before, but we'll just mention them again here. So we have a few different glands which arise from the integumentary system. All right, our sudoriferous glands, or sweat glands. And we have our two kinds, eccrine with the pores, and apocrine with hairs in different regions of the body. And we mentioned the sebaceous gland, which secretes our sebum, keeps our hair oily and our skin moist. Okay, but we have a couple others, such as the ceruminous gland, which is found in your ear canal, right? And produces cerumen, which is your earwax. Okay, and cerumen basically kind of acts like a protective layer within your ear. It supposedly keeps bugs out of your ears. Although bugs can get in there and get stuck and cause some problems. And then our last one, mammary glands. Which of course secrete milk. Okay, mammary glands are actually modified sweat glands. Okay, highly modified, and they release in a different way as well, which we talked about before. But yeah, those are then our glands of the integumentary system. Now, one of the things about the cerumen or the earwax is it can become compacted and hardened in your ear canal, and that can prevent you from being able to hear, right? Has anyone bought those? Just wanted to go over our parts of the dermis. So the epidermis is lying on top of here, right? And we already know the layers of the epidermis. But we have two regions of the dermis, okay? Where these ridges are, this is our papillary layer. Okay, and this is responsible for your fingerprints. Okay, how they're arranged forms ridges, which forms your fingerprints. And the oils on your fingers leave traces of your fingerprints everywhere. The papillary layer is made mostly of areolar connective tissue. Okay, and then the bigger layer here, which has, all your blood supply, sensory nerve endings, the hair follicle, the erector pili muscle, is our reticular layer, not to be confused with the reticular tissue, but it has dense, irregular connective tissue. And why would that be a great place to have dense, irregular connective tissue? Okay, it's strong and in many directions. Your skin is able to be moved to many and stretch in different directions as well. Okay, so that's it for our integumentary system.